한적한 어느 날
Hercule Poirot's residence.
Poirot, please.
Oh,
Jack here.
yes. Chief Inspector Japp.
Good morning, Chief Inspector Japp.
Here's a strange thing, Poirot.
Good of you to spare the time, Poirot.
어느 여인의 죽음에 제프와 동행한 포아로. 스스로 목숨을 잃은 여인.
If she shot herself, she'd probably have slipped from the chair into just that position.
But
The prints on the gun, sir, they're the problem. Bit of a thumbprint and a forefinger, and that's all.
왼손에 있는 총의 지문 이외엔 특이사항은 없었다.
anything else?
The window was closed and bolted, and the door was locked. We haven't been able to find the key.
What's this?
그리고 떨어져 있는 단추 하나.
Anything strike you? I was looking at the watch.
시계가 신경 쓰이는 포아로.
How long has she been dead?
She died at about 11:30 last night.
No sign of any note having been written.
No. Seems to me all we've got to go on at the moment is the missing key. If the key was here, we wouldn't hesitate. Suicide, we'd say.
그녀와 동거 중이던 플랜더 레이스를 찾아간다.
You were away for the weekend, I take it.
Yes, since Friday noon.
Tell me about Mrs. Allen, Miss Splendleith.
I met her abroad. She was on her way back from India. I was looking for someone to share a flat with me. We decided we liked each other.
Did she have any particular man friend? Or men friends?
She was engaged to be married again, if that answers your question.
What's the name of the man she was engaged to?
Oh, my God. I haven't told Charles.
Who is Charles, miss?
The man Barbara was engaged to. Charles Laverton West. He's
앨런의 약혼자에 대한 정보를 얻는다.
Mrs. Allen was left-handed, wasn't she?
left-handed? No, I don't think so. No, I'm sure she wasn't.
Really? You see, Mrs. Allen was shot in the left temple, and the gun was in her left hand. Didn't you notice that when you found the body?
No, I didn't. It was so horrible, I didn't notice anything.
That's understandable, miss. But it seems highly unlikely that a normally right-handed person would shoot themselves left-handed. Have you ever seen this before?
No,
It's not yours nor Mrs. Allen's?
it's not the kind of thing normally worn by our sex, is it?
Oh, so you recognise it?
I don't recognise it. I recognise what it is, though. It's half of a man's cufflink.
그 사이 헤이스팅스는 프레디라는 꼬마를 섭외한다.
Freddy's got the goods.
사건 당일 그녀가 만난 남자에 대해 알려주는 꼬마.
A man got out. He was about 45, well set up. Military-looking gent.
You've seen him before?
Yeah, a couple of times. Dark blue overcoat, toothbrush moustache. He was in there for about an hour. I saw them come out together.
So you saw him leave?
I don't miss much, Gov.
Then you heard what they said, of course.
Yeah, he said, think it over and let me know. And she said something, then he said, so long.
Here you are, my boy. You seem a bright kind of shaver. Here's sixpence for you.
That's very kind of you, sir. But you couldn't see a way to making it shilling, could you?
Go on, clear off.
그녀의 약혼자에게 죽음을 알리는 일행.
How? Shot, sir.
Shot. Good God, I hope the newspapers haven't got hold of this.
그녀의 죽음에 걱정하는 방향은 다른 쪽이다.
By the way, sir, was Mrs. Allen left-handed?
Left-handed? No, I don't think so. Can't say I ever... No, she was right-handed, I'm sure.
Good morning, Chief Inspector Japp.
Yes, well, good morning.
포아로의 사무실에 방문한 제프 경감은 한 가지를 묻는다.
Something I've been meaning to ask you, Poirot. What was that you were sniffing at in the room when we first examined the body?
By no means. It was merely cigarette smoke.
I didn't smell cigarette smoke.
No more did I, my friend.
There were 9 cigarette ends in the ashtray, 6 of them Gaspers, 3 Turkish.
Exactly.
한편 다시 한번 조사를 위해 플랜더 레이스의 집에 방문한다.
There was something missing from that room, Chief Inspector.
그렇게 조사를 위해 가던 중 앨런의 계좌에 대해 알려주는 제프.
And you noticed as I did that Mrs. Allen drew out £200 in cash from her bank on Monday morning.
And 3 months ago, on the 6th of August, another 200.
Truly?
Truly. And there's no £200 in this house that my lads could find.
플랜더 레이스에게 의문의 한 남자를 묻는다.
He's described as a man of 45, military bearing, toothbrush moustache, smartly dressed and driving a standard Swallow Saloon car. Do you know who that is?
Sounds like Major Eustace.
Who's Major Eustace?
He was a man Barbara had known in India. He turned up about a year ago, and we've seen him on and off since.
한편 계단 및 찬장을 보고 싶은 제프.
We keep it locked. Otherwise, one's umbrellas and things have a habit of getting pinched.
Very sensible.
That's mine. It came back with me yesterday morning, so there can't be anything there.
별건 없다. 다시 한번 약혼남 찰스를 만난 그들은 유스티스에 대해 묻는다.
Oh, yes, I remember. I met him once at Barbara's. Mrs. Allen's. Rather a doubtful type, in my opinion. I said as much to Mrs. Allen.
많이 의심스러운 유스티스.
He wasn't the sort of man I should have encouraged to come to the house after we were married.
어느 술집에 앉아 있는 그
No, thank you.
You smoke Turkish, I see.
Yeah. Would you prefer a gasper? I've got some. Somewhere.
No, this'll do fine. Thanks.
I think you knew Mrs. Barbara Allen, Major Eustace.
Ah, yes. Very sad business. I saw it in the paper last night.
What I want to know is, did you see Mrs. Allen on the night of November the 5th?
Indeed, I did.
You called at her house, I think.
That's right. She asked me to advise her about some investments.
She gave no hint about contemplating suicide.
Well, not the least in the world. As a matter of fact, when we said goodbye, I said I'd ring her up soon and we'd do a show together.
You said you'd ring her up. Those were your last words?
Yes.
Curious. I have information that you said something quite different. My information is that what you actually said was, well, think it over and let me know. Not quite the same thing, is it?
Well, I think what I said was that she should let me know when she was free. I mean, you can't expect a man to remember word for word.
Did she by any chance then trust you with a sum of £200?
What the devil do you mean by that?
Well, Mrs. Allen drew out the sum of £200 in cash from her bank. Some of the money was in £5 notes. They can be traced by their numbers, of course.
Well, trace them then, and be damned to you. Trace them. I don't care.
Was the money for investment, Major Eustace, or was it blackmail?
That's a preposterous suggestion. How dare you?
제프는 유스티스를 범인으로 보고 있다.
Look, what happened was this. I went round to the house. I mean, I telephoned first.
What time did you get there?
About 9:30. We sat and talked.
And smoked.
Yes, and smoked. Anything wrong with that?
Where did this talk take place?
In the sitting room. As I said, we sat and talked quite amicably, and then I left just before about 10:30.
You stayed in the sitting room throughout your visit?
Yes.
You didn't go upstairs to Mrs. Allen's own room?
No.
Could I just look at your cufflinks, Major Eustace?
Cufflinks?
You can refuse if you wish, of course.
I've got nothing to hide.
When did that happen?
What?
Oh, one of them's broken.
Oh, I know. I noticed it this morning. Doesn't show if I put that head on the inside.
Would it surprise you to learn that it happened when you were visiting Mrs. Allen's?
Well, I've not denied I was there.
Yes, but that piece of cufflink was found not downstairs in the sitting room, but upstairs in Mrs. Allen's own room. There in the same room where she was murdered.
Murdered?
Yes, and where a man sat smoking the same kind of cigarettes that you smoke.
You tried to frame me. I never went near the house again that night.
You didn't need to. She was dead when you left.
No. No, wait a minute. Wait a minute. You've got someone who heard me talking to Barbara on the doorstep. You said...
They heard you talk to her, then pretend to wait for her to answer and then talk again. That's an old trick.
Oh my God, it isn't true.
모든 정황은
Robert,
유스티스를 향하고
Eustace,
있다.
I must ask you to accompany me to the police station.
Oh my God.
무언가 살피는 브랜더 레이스.
Would a presumably sane young woman want to throw an expensive case into a lake with just 2 magazines in it and a couple of stones to make sure it sank?
You need worry no longer. The answer is coming.
And why break up a perfectly good set of golf clubs?
I don't mind telling you, I lay awake last night worrying about it.
Mon pauvre chap.
Miss Plenderleith, Mr. Poirot.
Thank you, Miss Lemon.
포아로의 사무실에 찾아온 그녀.
I'm sorry I'm late. I've just come from Barbara's funeral.
It was so good of you to come. Please sit down, mademoiselle. I have certain news to give you.
I read it in the papers. Major Eustace has been arrested. It was murder, then?
Oh, yes. The willful destruction of one human being by another human being. And now, mademoiselle, I'm going to tell you just how I arrived at the truth in this matter.
He has his methods. I humor him, you know.
사건의 진실에 대해 말하는 포아로.
To begin with, there was the smell of the cigarette smoke.
Which I didn't smell.
Precisely. And yet the ashtray had in it no fewer than the stubs of 9 cigarettes. So it was odd, very odd that the room should smell as it did. Perfectly fresh.
Oh, so that's what you were getting at.
The next thing that attracted my attention was the wristwatch worn by the dead woman.
What about it?
It was worn on the right wrist. Now, in my experience, it is more usual for the wristwatch to be worn on the left wrist. But now, my friends, I come to the writing bureau.
Yes, I thought we'd come to that.
You know, the blotting pad had on top a clean, untouched piece of blotting paper.
The sheet was clean because Barbara hadn't written any letters that day.
Yes, she had. Freddie saw her post some letters at 6 o'clock.
Well done, Hastings. So what then happened to the piece of paper on which she had blotted her letters? But there was a second curious detail about the writing desk. Perhaps you, Jep, can remember the arrangement of it. Allow me. Inkstand and blotting pad in the center. The pen tray to the left. The calendar. And the quill pen to the right. Bien?
Yes?
Ah, you do not see. The pens for use were in the pen tray on the left. Is it not more usual to find the pen tray on the right, more convenient for the right hand? So, I made myself a picture, chap. A picture of Miss Plenderleith arriving home after the weekend. A picture of Miss Plenderleith opening the door and finding her friend lying dead with a pistol clasped in her hand.
Barbara?
Her left hand, naturally, since her friend was left-handed. In spite of everything Miss Plenderleith has done to convince us that her friend was right-handed. There is also a note addressed to you, mademoiselle. It was, I fancy, a very moving letter about a young, gentle, unhappy woman driven by blackmail to take her own life. I think almost at once the idea flashed into your head. Let him be punished. You take up the note and the top sheet of blotting paper. Then you go downstairs and light the fire and drop both into the flames. You take the ashtray upstairs to further the illusion that there were two people sat up there talking. You also have a lucky break. You discover a fragment of Major Eustace's cufflink in the sitting room. You take that upstairs too. You expect that to clinch the matter. You take the pistol from her left hand. You wipe it clean and put it back in her left hand. You bolt the window and lock the door. There must be no suspicion that you have tampered with a room.
모든 일은 플랜더 레이스가 살인사건으로 보이기 위해 꾸민 것.
And so it goes on. Oh yes, mademoiselle, it was clever. A very clever murder. For that is what it was. The attempted murder of Major Eustace.
It wasn't murder. It was justice. That man hounded Barbara to her death. Poor kid. Just because she got involved with some married man in India and had a baby. When the child died, she came back to England. She met Charles and fell in love with him. God knows why, the pompous little tick. And then that devil Eustace turned up from India. If you'd read that letter she left me, you'd understand why I did what I did. She loved Charles, she said. She couldn't live without him. But for his own sake, she mustn't marry him. She was taking the best way out. I wish you'd seen that letter. And you call it murder.
Because it is murder. The man you wish to trap is already in prison. Do you really wish to destroy him? Do you really wish to destroy the life, the mind of any human being?
No, I don't. I wish I did. But I don't.
Well, I'm jiggered.
Not murder disguised as suicide, but suicide made to look like murder.
And cleverly done, too. Nothing overemphasized.
Wait a minute. What about the briefcase? What about the golf clubs?
Well, they were Mrs. Allen's. You see, Jane Plenderleith had to convince us that her friend was right-handed, if we were to believe she had been murdered. But the golf clubs, they were the left-handed.
Of course.
And when she opened the cupboard, she tried to focus our attention on the wrong object. So she used the briefcase as a, what is it, a bloater? Kipper?
Red herring.
Absolutely. And now, my friends, it is time for me to take you to lunch.